Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica on our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where we take a look at some unported arcade games. And today we're taking a look at Kenju, which is an unreleased Atomiswave game, and it's got a decent character selection screen with a lot of fun art. But before we get too far involved, if you could do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But it's awesome to be able to show you guys this game because not only is it unported, it is unreleased. An arcade collector named Showtime found this in 2016, and it's finally made its way online for us all to enjoy because this was location tested. It feels about as done as a game could be that wasn't fully released, and now you can enjoy it in the comfort of your own home. So it is an Atomiswave game, but the way the files are set up, it's working netboot via Naomi. So I tried to launch this as an Atomiswave game and it did not work. But if you launch it as a Naomi game, it works perfectly fine. The game is super awesome. It's colorful, it's got this really nice cel-shaded style to it. The backgrounds are great, the arenas are great. It's a really awesome game. Now I will say, because it is unreleased, the character I'm playing with here, Slayman, sometimes the kicks just do not work. It seems like some of the characters' move sets haven't been programmed in fully. And of course, as an unreleased game, it's not like I can go online and look at an FAQ to see all the move sets. So if my gameplay isn't the greatest, that's because I'm still learning this game and I don't really have anything to go off of. But the fact that we're playing two different unreleased Atomiswave games in November of 2020 is absolutely incredible. The other one being Force 5, which I will talk about in a few weeks. But I don't know why this wasn't released. I mean, granted, maybe it just did poorly in location testing, but this has a definite like rival school feel to it. And there's even some arenas that feel like they're kind of emulating that art style and feel of a fighting game. But I absolutely love Kenju. It is an awesome experience and it's so fun to be able to play a new game like this. And since I've released some stuff for the 3DOM2, some arcade dumps that weren't out there before and some software that nobody had, it's always a special day when a collector finds something and finally releases it to the public. Because if you've been following along with my channel, or if you haven't, you know now, I'm always advocating for dumping and sharing of unreleased or rare games, because the more people that can enjoy these, the better, because they were made to be enjoyed, so why not? Now, functionally for the game, I mean, it is a review in its own way of Kenju. It is extremely good. You have this entire juggle mechanic where you can launch your opponent up into the air, and sometimes you're able to do aerial attacks depending on what strength of that air dive kick you use. It is a little bit hard to pull off, and I think that might be down to the fact that this is running on a Naomi platform versus an Atomiswave platform, even though it is an Atomiswave game. The Atomiswave used a JAMA harness, and Naomi uses JVS. So there is a slight lag in the input because they're basically on the fly converting the input system to JVS. And since that pulls at a different interval, it can sometimes create lag. It's not that bad at all, but you will notice occasionally an input may not come out the way you intended it to, or it may just get dropped. But visually, story-wise, granted I don't speak Japanese, this is a really excellent looking game, and it's something that I think everyone would really enjoy playing, and it is available to download online. I got this set up with two controllers, and I was able to play a two-player match. Granted, I had nobody else in the house with me at the moment in time, so I was kind of playing both characters, but as a test, it worked great. Now, if you do want to play this game, it's a little bit touchy. It's very sensitive on what Naomi BIOS you use. And if you see any graphical glitches, restart the Naomi, restart the emulator if that's how you're using it. That's going to basically allow it to launch. Sometimes the controls don't work. Relaunch the Naomi. They will work. Because it is a prototype of an unreleased game, it is going to be rough around the mechanical edges. But it never once crashed on me during gameplay. It never once froze. But it is quite a hard game. You'll see we're going back to the character selection screen here, and every character has a really nice portrait to it. They have a really nice model. Everything looks and sounds awesome to this game. You can tell that there was a lot of love put into it. Even the story elements. It's a really fun thing to look at. You've got all this background going on. It kind of feels a little bit like Virtua Fighter crossed with Tekken, and that's kind of how it feels. You know, some of the attacks feel a little bit more Virtua Fighter-esque, but your character's speed and movement definitely don't feel like Virtua Fighter because that game is a much slower, more methodical feeling game. So it kind of sits in its own little space, not quite Tekken, not quite Virtua Fighter, but it is just, like I said, an awesome game, and I love the art, how you have that vanishing point into the background. Each stage has a ton going on. It almost feels like a Capcom game or an SNK game where the backgrounds are as important as the actual fighting and combat mechanics. What I'm gonna let you do is watch the next bout from start to finish, because all of the impact strike, those sound effects sound absolutely amazing. The soundtrack to the game is great. This is probably one of my favorite fighting games I've played this year, and it is amazing because it's a game that never actually came out, and it's just so awesome to be able to show you guys something that didn't exist before. Even if I'm not the dumper, it's always a great time. But enjoy this little story bit, watch the fight, and I'll be back in a second to talk more about Kenju.
珍しく意見が俺もそう思うしてもって分からせてやる面白いやってみろよラウンド1ファイトYou won!
And he took one right to the ribs, and it's another knockout. And I will say that Kenju has some really good difficulty to it. I'm playing this on normal, and as we get towards the later stages, the game puts up a good fight. But I will say your mileage will vary because it's going to depend on what character you select to play as, because it seems like some of the characters don't have as big of a moveset, and it's impossible to say if that was intentional or if it's a situation where the programmers hadn't finished programming all the moves in for each character. Because obviously this being a prototype game, we don't know if this is a location test ROM, we don't know if this is a ROM before that, there's some information missing, so your mileage is just going to be a little bit different depending on who you pick. And it's the same situation when I was showing off Iron Blood, the unreleased 3D M2 fighting game. Some characters have full movesets, some just move forwards and backwards, and it's just a thing that happens when you're playing prototype games. You kind of just have to give them a little bit more leeway because we know they're not done. But for this not having been released, it is absolutely awesome. I'm really falling in love with Kenju. I want to learn more of the characters' movesets, and I really want to experience all that the game has to offer. Because I will say, at least for this capture, I wasn't able to beat the game. Now when I show you the video on Force 5 in a couple weeks, that game was quite easy and I was able to beat it, no big deal whatsoever. But I also just love all the diversity in the characters and the backgrounds. For something about the characters, the way they dress and look, it kind of feels a little bit like Guilty Gear, and then the backgrounds have that Virtual Fighter Tekken feel to them. But when you combine all of those elements, you end up with a really awesome, great game. Even in situations like this where you're fighting in this kind of Korean arena, it really feels like rival schools to me. All the transitions between these power attacks, all the special effects, it just is an amazing thing to look at, and I can't believe this game didn't get released. Now when we look at Force 5, that game's still fun, of course, but I don't want to spoil it too much, but that one I could kind of understand where somebody may have decided to pull the plug at the last minute. But as you'll see there with that charge kick, when your attacks hit, it really feels like a strong impact, and it's a really great, awesome feeling. And again, in this stage here, fighting against Shinhua, I think that's how you pronounce the name, the music turns into a little bit more East Asian vibe, and it just sounds awesome. The graphics in this game are great. The sound effects are great. The soundtrack is great. The combat mechanics, everything about it, even the story beats, minus the fact that I don't speak Japanese and don't know what they're saying, they all add up to make a really great package that I would have loved to have seen released in arcades and maybe home consoles. But that's the great thing about collecting rare things, collecting arcade hardware, finding betas. I release what I find when I can, and it's always great to have more of this stuff out into the public. So a big thanks to the person Shootime who released these and saved them from basically obscurity or just ending up in a recycling bin and being destroyed. It's people like him and like me, not in this instance, but in general, the people that are releasing stuff, they are just awesome. And I will say that I don't know if this is the boss. I wasn't able to get to stage 8. It definitely feels boss-like to me. But once you get to stage 7, the game just starts absolutely handing your ass to you. And like I said, it's hard to learn a game that doesn't have a moveset, but I'm getting there. But short of that, that's Kenju, an unreleased Atomiswave game running on the Naomi platform. If you do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Help me feel better after getting a perfect defeat on that boss. But we will see you guys next week with another episode of Unported Playlist, and we'll be back on Tuesday and Friday with more episodes in our mainline series. But we are dead. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.